The story of survival on the home front during World War II isn't told with the loudness of battlefield explosions, but with the quiet persistence of families who endured years of uncertainty. Before we get into the details, subscribe to Legacy of Survival so you never miss the deeper, hard-earned lessons buried in history. What those families carried, crafted, repaired and preserved didn't just help them survive a global war. It helped them build skills that remain relevant today. In the next few minutes, I'm laying out 7 essential tools that kept World War II families alive. Tools that weren't luxuries, but lifelines. If you're serious about understanding real historical survival, not romanticized myths, you'll want to pay attention, because the modern world may look different, but the principles haven't aged a day. How the simple hand mill became a symbol of food independence. For millions of families, especially in Europe, a hand-cranked grain mill was the difference between dependence and self-reliance. With rationing cutting deeply into bread, flour and cereal supplies, many families turned to whatever grain they could find. Barley, oats, corn, even acorns during the harshest years. The mill allowed them to turn these raw materials into usable meal. When electricity failed or bakeries closed, the hand mill kept food on the table. Today, the same principle applies. A modern hand mill lets you turn whole grains into flour even during blackouts, supply chain interruptions, or tight budgets. If you want a practical way to apply this skill, start by buying a few kilos of whole wheat berries and learning to grind flour for 1 week's bread. Once you've mastered that, rotate grains into your pantry the same way families in wartime rotated whatever they could barter or gather. Why the cast-iron stove wasn't just a heat source, but a survival engine. You know, the cast-iron stove is one of the most underrated tools in wartime history. It cooked food, heated rooms, dried clothes, boiled water for sanitation, and in some regions it even kept livestock spaces above freezing. Quite remarkable, really, when you think about all it managed to do. Families rationed every piece of fuel they could find. Wood scraps, peat, dried brush, even furniture at times were fed into these stoves to keep a household functioning. The lesson here isn't nostalgia for old iron, it's understanding multi-purpose gear. In survival planning today, one tool doing 5 jobs is always superior to 5 single-function gadgets. A small modern wood stove or rocket stove follows the same philosophy. Try boiling water, heating a single room, and cooking a full meal on the same device. You'll see exactly why World War II families treasured iron stoves more than gold. How the sewing kit became one of the most valuable household assets. Needle, thread, patches and simple hand tools kept clothes functional far beyond their intended lifespans. New clothing was heavily rationed, and military production soaked up most textiles. A family that repaired instead of replaced saved ration coupons, money and time. Mothers taught children to darn socks' reinforced buttons and patch torn elbows because throwing anything away simply wasn't an option. This skill translates directly to modern resilience. Take 1 hour and learn a basic hemmer patch and a button repair. Replace one throwaway purchase with a repair, and you begin to understand the mindset wartime families live by every day. Survival wasn't dramatic. It was disciplined. Why the water filter and boiling pot were critical in areas hit by bombings. Municipal systems collapsed under air raids, and contamination became a serious threat. Families used simple filtration methods, cloth, sand, gravel, and relied heavily on boiling. A metal pot large enough to sanitize daily drinking water was a priority item. Even households that still had tap access boiled every drop because trust in infrastructure evaporated quickly during raids. To apply this today, assemble a minimal water kit, a sturdy pot, a simple gravity or ceramic filter, and the ability to heat water without electricity. Test it for one day. Use it for all your drinking and cooking. You'll develop a respect for how much time and fuel families once invested in something we now take for granted. How the hand tools in the shed turned into survival equipment overnight. Axes, saws, hammers, spades, chisels, and hand drills suddenly became essential when cities lost power or supply chains collapsed. People used them to build makeshift shelters, reinforce basements, repair bomb damage, and harvest firewood. Many of these tools were passed down from earlier generations, but the Second World War gave them new purpose. To put this into practice today, focus on mastering one tool at a time. Spend a weekend cutting and splitting a small amount of firewood with a handsaw and axe. Repair a loose board using only non-electric tools. Historical survival is rooted in physical capability, not just gear. Why the pressure canner became a weapon against hunger. Canning, allowed families to store garden harvests, forage foods, and even small amounts of meat without relying on those failing supply chains. Pressure canners, they were treasured because they allowed low-acid foods, beans, vegetables, broths to be safely preserved for months. Wartime gardens, they were incredibly productive, but without preservation, all that hard work could be lost in just a few days. If you want to adopt this skill, why not start with one batch of pressure-canned beans or broth? Learn the sterilization steps exactly. It's important. It's the same process families followed when they couldn't count on stores or electricity staying stable. Now, how the radio became the most important information survival tool, that's quite a story in itself. A simple, often battery-powered radio kept families connected to news, warnings, blackout alerts, and government instructions. It wasn't entertainment, it was a lifeline. Families rationed batteries the way soldiers rationed ammunition. Modern survivors can take the same principle and equip themselves with a hand crank or solar radio. Run a test. Go 24 hours using radio-only news. You'll understand why wartime families kept the radio at the center of the home. These 7 tools weren't dramatic. They were practical, disciplined, and rooted in long-term resilience. If you value real history and want more deep dives into the lessons that matter, subscribe to Legacy of Survival and share this video with someone who appreciates the grit and skill that kept families alive when the world was at its breaking point.